Yeah, so today I have with me Kim Smith of Inspired to Sing.
Hello.
Hello, it's so nice to have you.
Thank
We've
you.
been talking about doing this for a little while now.
Yeah, and we finally got it happening.
Yeah, well, that's because you are halfway across the world, except you are not currently halfway across the world presently.
Yeah, just a little bit across the world.
Yeah. So Kim has written a fun little book. I'll get a little bit closer there, called The Moderately Tortured Artist.
hmm
And so as I've gotten through the book here, it's kind of fun because I really feel like it's your voice that I'm
Thank
hearing in here.
well,
Sorry?
I think that's a compliment.
It is. Well, so because I read your blog, I'm subscribed to that, and there's always this sort of very casual tone, but you have a knack for being able to just kind of tell it like it is,
Thank
and
you.
just sort of really bring it down to sort of this in here and away from this so much, which is kind of where I reside.
Yeah, there's so many singers we've had there.
Yeah, and you just bring it down to this is how it is. Like this is at the core of things. This is how these emotions and thoughts kind of work together. And I really appreciate that. I feel like as a teacher, because I know we've shared a student for a little while. I feel like as a teacher, you're someone who likes to really, and I could be entirely wrong, but you seem like someone who just really likes to address the psychological and the emotional things that get in people's way of being able to really free their voices.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it has knock-on effects to their technique. So sometimes when they're getting really frustrated that they're not able to, maybe in the practice room, they're able to absolutely nail it. And then when they get on stage, it all falls apart. And that's the emotional piece. That's the self-doubt that we have and how that manifests. So I think it's really important because you can be the world's best singer and then collapse in an audition. So if you don't tackle it, then that's going to keep happening.
Right. And well, even before that, I mean, there are so many singers who've been told all their lives, well, you don't have any talent. You're just not good enough, so don't even bother trying. I mean, you have a chapter in there too entitled something like that, if it's, what do you have here? Yeah, don't play unless you're fabulous.
Yeah.
And how many times are we told that really in some way or another? Maybe not directly, maybe not in so many words, but how many times are we told that you don't have any talent, so like don't quit your day job, or don't, maybe you should just kind of stop singing or do something else. Find where your talents really lie. How many
Yeah.
times are we told that, even though our passion is to sing, even though we love it, we may not be the best at it, but we love it.
Yeah, I think that, and you'll probably find this as well, that a lot of the beginners that come to me that are absolutely terrified to sing have been told that they're tone deaf or have been told to mime in their school choir, and that kind of thing really stays with you. So it doesn't matter if you were 4 or 44, you're going to remember that. And yeah, I think it's really damaging. And the other piece of it is that not very unlike learning an instrument, we actually feel like people should be born with a good voice and then work on it rather than that it's a skill that is to be learned from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it always amazes me that people think so differently about voice training than they do any other instrument. Like
Yeah.
you would never expect to be able to play Chopin on the piano within 3 weeks of lessons, like from having never read music before, having touched a piano before. And yet there's somehow that expectation that as singers, because we already speak and can maybe already hold a tune, that somehow we're supposed to be able to play or sing complex pieces and just be amazing within a very short time of taking lessons or never having taken lessons. Just it's
Yeah, exactly. It's not
falling
like
it, and there it is.
the building blocks of learning to play the trumpet or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So I was wondering if we could just talk about some of the things that. See, I'm so studious. I have like little
I love that.
annotations. I don't think I've ever done that in my entire life with anything. I'm really not that academic, and I was never.
That sounds strange to me. Like the way that you write is very very in line with that. Very, yeah. I would say like academic. So that's
I
really.
I am academic, but I don't think I've ever annotated anything in my life. I don't think so I think it should be a compliment that I just
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss some of the really good points and what have you, and we could talk about them.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a lot of chapters, and I like the description that you have at the start where you're talking about sort of having the suitcase full of, let's say unproductive or counterproductive thoughts or philosophies or, whatever it might be, emotions, and you're sort of unpacking those, and to get from where you are right now, where you're terrified of performing or you're not giving yourself permission to do what you really want to do, to the point where you're just like, I'm going to do this no matter what. Whether I'm amazing at it or not, I am going to do this. I'm going to give myself permission, even if it means falling and failing. And then I'm going to just, like you said, wash, rinse, repeat, just kind of start up again, get up, try. Even if you fall flat on your face, that's okay. You get up and try again.
Yeah.
And getting from there where you're too terrified, you're paralyzed with fear, to being able to just say, the heck with it, I'm going to do this. And I'm not going to rely on anybody else to tell me whether or not I have a right to be doing this.
Yeah, and that's a really important piece of the puzzle. And I thought, everyone has their baggage, which is why the suitcase kind of analogy works. And you take out all of the different elements that are holding you back, and just kind of really take a good look at them and why it is that they're so powerful over us. But nobody else is ever going to give you that permission. They might, give you a compliment about your voice, but they're never going to be able to give you that permission. And I think that's something that's really dangerous, is that we look to other people to tell us whether or not we're allowed to be doing this.
Is that you?
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah. Because me with technology, as we discovered at the start of this call.
We did well. We're here. It's recording. Well,
thanks to you. Honestly, I wouldn't have been able to manage this without you. So the first that you talk about is perfectionism, something that I know absolutely nothing about.
We haven't had conversations about this before.
No, we haven't at all. No, I haven't recorded videos about that either. So. Yeah, so I like how you described it as sort of the white, clean linen shirt that's actually never been worn, because perfection really is an unattainable goal. If we're being truly honest and realistic, I mean, there's no such a thing as perfect, and especially when it comes to the arts, yeah. And this idea that it was that imagery struck me really profoundly, I think, because it was just like this clean white linen shirt that somehow defies all the I think laws of physics or something. I think you said to that effect that it's never wrinkled. It never needs to be ironed. It's completely wrinkle resistant.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think I've ever worn that shirt. As much as I've tried to put it on, as much as I've wanted to put it on, I don't think I've ever worn it.
Yeah. And why did you buy it if you're not going to wear it?
But you want to wear it, and that's the thing. There's that, this is so pristine and it's so beautiful and it's so perfect and that's what I want. And you buy it, but then it's almost like you can't put it on because it doesn't fit. It will never fit anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand perfectionism a little bit. And then I think, what I was thinking, you have here, you talk about fear on stage and auditions and comparison, which is also something I know nothing about. And criticism. That's a good one, because I know you have a little personal anecdote in here, a little story that you had, something that you'd experienced when you were younger. I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but I think criticism, especially in this day and age with so much out there on, the internet, and are trying to be really vulnerable and really courageous in sharing our art with people, in whatever format, YouTube, Periscope, whatever it might be, and realizing that opens us up wide for any kind of insensitive comments and criticism. And that's really hard, because I think that for so many of us who are kind of, shy about things, or who are really just sort of fragile, that really leaves us in a position of again, paralysis, because we're afraid to go, because we don't want to hear that criticism. We don't want to read the negative comments that people put up there. And oftentimes they're not put in a constructive way. It's not constructive criticism. It's cruel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about any of that.
Yeah, so I don't know if the story that you're talking about is when I actually recorded a live, I guess, mini concert of me singing on Periscope, which is like, a live video platform. And I thought that it went really, really well. And then my best friend actually called me and said, "Are you okay?" I saw all these comments and I was really worried about you. And luckily, I am fairly blind and the comments are very small on Periscope, so I hadn't seen them. But then went and checked the replay, and sure enough, there was a couple of what we would like to call like trolls that were talking about how horrible I sounded and that like their ears were bleeding and that kind of thing. And luckily I had no idea while I was singing it. And then you get this kind of punched in the gut feeling where you feel really sick and you feel really angry and you don't really know what to do with all of these emotions. And so I ended up going to a kickboxing class to try to like get all of that out of my system. But yeah, I mean, I'm a very lucky person in that I haven't had a lot of criticism around my voice, whereas I know that some people are in the exact opposite position where all they're getting is criticism constantly. But we're in this day and age where we all have like a platform to share our music, and it's huge, and you're able to reach so many people internationally, which is amazing. And it's really, really great if you're making something that makes people feel things, and then it can sort of take over and go viral and reach a lot of people. But it also means that you're very exposed, you're very open to not only people that would connect with you and understand you and love what you do, but the other side of that coin is the people that hate what you do. So they're going to find you, they're equally likely to find you. And criticism, I think, is really tough because we all just want to be heard. We all just want to be liked. And it comes back to this idea of if you haven't given yourself permission and you're looking externally for that, and then you come to criticism, that's that wall. Someone's told you, no, you're not good enough to do this, and depending on how they've phrased it. But yeah, trying to figure out if it's constructive or not is, I think, the first step. Is there anything that you can actually learn from this that is helpful in your journey, or is it just nasty? And then you actually have to kind of remove yourself from the equation and look at, maybe this other person is struggling and they're hurting, or they're jealous of you, or, somebody has told them that they can't sing, so they're going to go troll everybody else that thinks that they have, the right to put their art out there. So it's really never about us, but because we're looking outwards so much for our value and our self-worth, that's what it comes down to. So that's why I'm really passionate about talking about this, and it's not even like self-love or self-esteem. It's this kind of intrinsic value, this worth that we have without the comment of anybody else. And I think that we're kind of almost scared to dive into that and unravel all of the the stories and the baggage that surround that, so that we can become very resilient. Because I talk about it in the book about confidence. Everyone wants to feel confident, but really that comes from being very brave, falling flat on your face, and then getting up again. And it's that resilience, you're just exercising that resilience or that courage muscle that's going to get you there. And it's not a fun journey.
No, it's not. And I think it's especially scary, again, because of the internet, because there was a time when your performances were, local. Yeah. It was the people who were there. So you didn't go home afterwards and read the comments, and, you didn't really have that constantly, all the notifications just popping up in the corner of your screen saying so-and-so commented on your video. And then you're just like, that'd be a good comment.
Yeah. And I'd also want to say that we experience that as teachers a lot. And it's not as artistic, I suppose, as if we were writing our own songs and putting them out there, but it is still us putting ourselves out there. And so I just want to say that I think you're really courageous for doing that and and still doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, we have to continually actually think about the other people that this is impacting. So for us, if we get a negative comment and we want to shut our entire channel down, we have to think about the people that are watching, those singers and those students and the people that are benefiting from this. And that's important as an artist too. You know, that one song or that one video might inspire somebody to do something brave for themselves, or might really hit a nerve. And you know, singers have saved lives. It sounds really major, but they have in those kind of dark moments, if you feel that connection.
Yeah, no doubt they have. So the interesting thing is that, you know, I certainly feel like part of my responsibility in having my YouTube channel is to just sort of disseminate information, accurate, scientifically accurate information, to give people tools. But also I do speak a lot of the psychology of singing, the emotions behind it. And that's probably my background, which I don't think anybody here knows actually, is that my background is a psychiatric counselor. Yeah. And that's what I actually went through all my formal education and my training and my certifications was in counseling. So that was my background. And so I definitely, when I read your book, it just reminds me of, I almost feel as though I'm sitting in like a psychology class. There's certainly that element to it.
Very casual people, like it's really more like having a glass of wine and chatting with you.
Well, that I feel is like your voice, because that's just who you are. You just like, I feel as though you're very casual, and I tend to be very formal, and I kind of.
Which is why this is probably going to be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah. It's, bravery, courage, just being able to get out there. And I think you said this near the end of the book, that those people who are criticizing us and telling us that we really have no business being on stage or recording or whatever it might be, would likely never ever do that themselves.
Yeah.
And yet they somehow feel as though that gives them permission to criticize those who are actually doing it, who are actually being vulnerable, being courageous.
Yeah,
and
that's a really important thing to ask yourself, is because I don't think it's usually singers that that do what we do, so like putting themselves out there or getting up on stage, that would go and criticize another singer. Like I think that would be much rarer than somebody that doesn't feel comfortable putting themselves out there to do that. And that's a concept that I saw Brené Brown give a TED talk on, which is, you know, if you're not in the arena getting your ass kicked, I don't want to hear from you. And I think that's powerful, because if you've got some unknown, you know, troll number 43 telling you that you're terrible and you should never put your voice out there again, what have they done? Like, have they ever done that themselves? It's pretty unlikely if they're called something obscure and they have, you know, no profile photo and they don't have their own channel. And yeah, so I think it's important to make that distinction. Is it actually one of your peers that this is coming from?
Yeah, that's very true. So even with, I was just thinking about something that we spoke about a few minutes ago there's not everybody's going to like us. Not everybody's going to like our art, even if it's good, even if the vast majority of people enjoy it. So I always come back to this example. So there are certain singers who I know are very skilled singers. They've got some great vocal chops, but I do not like their voices and I do not like their music. Like Celine Dion. I'm sorry for those of you who are fans of Celine Dion, but I hate her voice.
Yeah, wow.
And
I grew up on Celine Dion, so
yeah, and it's not that and again, I can kind of say, I would never say anything bad about her singing, because it's just, she is very skilled, you know, as a singer, but that doesn't mean that I have to like it.
No, of course not.
You know, same with like Barbra Streisand. You know, yeah. I have a great appreciation for her skills, but I don't particularly like her voice. And that's the hard thing, I think, for us to swallow, is because those who are judging us and making comments aren't necessarily making that differentiation. They're not necessarily saying, I don't like this song. They're saying, you suck. You're a terrible singer. They're not saying, I don't like that quality in your voice, but I can acknowledge that you're a good singer. I just don't particularly like the timbre of your voice, or whatever it might be, or what you do with it musically or artistically. Because there are certainly some singers that I hear where it's like, I hear so much potential, but I don't like what they do artistically with their voices. And I feel like it detracts from the actual natural qualities of their voices, whatever it might be. But it's just, I think those who are critiquing and who aren't necessarily qualified to critique, and they're sort of judging based on, I don't know, whatever emotion it
Yeah,
evokes in them, or performances, or or aesthetically on a certain level. They have certain expectations when it comes to singing, or certain qualities that they're looking for. And if you miss that mark, then to them, you're not valuable. Your work is not valuable.
yeah. And that's a really hard pill to swallow, particularly if you're a people pleaser or a perfectionist, because then you try to please everybody, and actually you're going to have 16 different voices to
Mm-hmm.
please everybody. And that's exhausting. So you really need to, it's like when I have students, and you probably experience this too, and they come in and I say, okay, what did you think of that, section that you just did? And they go, I don't know. What do you think? Is it good? All I want to do is sound good. And I say to them, good can be anything. Like, I want to make sure that you're singing efficiently and safely, but we can get you having any different sort of tone color that you like. And so good is one of my kind of pet peeves, because good means so many different things to different people. And so you need to start getting the singer to actually hear different colors as well. And you can do that by listening to one singer and another singer and saying, well, can you hear that this is a richer, darker tone than this bright one? And it just sort of starts with that. But yeah, you're right. We can't be everything to everybody. And again, that kind of comes back to questions like, who did you have to be when you were a child to receive love? Like, or what did you think that you needed to do? And all of these kind of questions that you go into your backstory, or people don't like going into their backstory, but you find out a lot about your personality and why you actually are kind of looking outside of yourself to get that love and to get that validation.
Yeah, I think, again, just when we get to the root of those feelings and thoughts that we have, the criticism, the fear of criticism, the fear of, or the perfectionism, the drive to be, perfect, the drive to just please everyone. What is at the root of that? Where does it come down to? And again, this starts to sound like a little bit like some psychobabble.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, it's like my mother lying on the psychiatrist's couch. It's all my mom's fault. It all comes down to my mother, no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is there? Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, what is at the root of that? What are you afraid of? What does that critique mean to you? Because it's not often, I don't like what you just did, that upsets you.
No. Yeah.
It's everything that happened in the decades before that it just culminates, and it grows. And so that one comment means a lot more than just that one comment. It means everything that everybody else has said about us, and everything we thought about ourselves, and it just explodes inside our head. And
it touches on a trigger, and we all have multiple trigger points, but particularly if you have something specific, like if you don't think that you could sing in tune, or you came from not having pitch issues, and then someone says, oh, you were flat on that note, like that just absolutely sets off that fear of, I can't sing in tune. So we all have these stories, and it's button pushing. So for somebody, that might not bother them so much. They'll go, oh yeah, I was a bit flat. Okay, how do I correct that? And they can work through that a lot more, I guess, like thinking about it rather than feeling the pain about it. Whereas somebody would be absolutely paralyzed by that and maybe give up for 3 months because it's triggered something so deep in them. So I think really asking yourself, what are the stories that I tell myself about my voice, about singing in general, about people with talent, about what it means to be an artist or to be creative. And then you can start connecting, okay, well, that comment was okay because I don't have a story associated with that, whereas that one really triggered me because I sort of have this belief, or this question of belief around whether or not I'm good enough, or whether or not, people are going to like me.
Yeah, I even know for myself, I mean, there are certain things where I feel like the bruises are still there. Yeah. And you just touch that spot right in that right spot or wrong spot. And yeah, it's just, it's particularly painful. It's more painful than other comments that somebody might make.
Yeah.
And I've recorded a video on constraint. Sorry?
You've got to be compassionate about that, and acknowledge that there is a bruise there, and go, okay, well, that hurt because of this bruise that I've already got. I think sometimes we either fall in a heap and, we're eating ice cream and crying, or we're like, oh no, well, I don't care what you think, and we try to be really hard about it and wear this really tough armor, when in reality, I think that neither of those is like a great option. You should be able to kind of let yourself fall apart and go, okay, well, I'm going to hurt for a day and then pick myself up and kind of get back on the horse. But acknowledging that it's okay that there's scar tissue there, and it's okay to be hurt by that, but then you don't want to give them all of the power, and allow them to tell you whether or not you have permission to be doing this.
Yeah, you mentioned something in the book too about our self-worth can't be defined by that, one bad note or something to that effect. That, we do. I'm somebody, I'm very guilty of this, where I'm just like, apparently I'm on an emotional roller coaster all the time with regards to my singing, and even this YouTube channel, just putting myself out there, just like the slightest thing can just trigger something in me, the slightest comment that, even if it's not all negative, just this one little thing, it's like, what do these people want from me?
Yeah,
I'm trying to just please everybody and trying to be liked, trying to make sure that people like what I'm putting out there and they see value in it, but they like me too. And and I know up here intellectually that I'm never going to be all things to all people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that. And all I can do is just do my very, very best and just be myself and put myself out there and just take that risk and be brave. But I mean, there have been times when those comments, really have hit me so hard that I have crumpled into that heap on the floor and not gotten up for months.
Yeah.
That's where I know it's unhealthy, where it's just like, I'm quitting teaching.
Yeah.
I'm quitting everything. I'm quitting singing. I'm quitting teaching. I'm quitting writing, all of it.
Yeah. And I think that makes you human, because if you were like, oh, that's fine, and you just kept going, like, there's something a bit robotic about that as well. And you're probably not doing it from an open-hearted place, because that's in the tagline as well, like the permission slip to make wholehearted music. So actually being in the music rather than being like, okay, well, I'm just going to put that out there and then I'm going to move on and not have that emotional attachment to it, because I think that's dangerous as well, and not very authentic in terms of creating music and creating art. But I think that it's okay that you fall apart where we have to. We're human. And the other part of that, I think, that is the idea of like the imposter complex or imposter syndrome, where you put something out there and somebody says, you have no idea what you're talking about. And then you go, oh my gosh, like maybe I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And you assume that somebody's going to like find you out. That's a really damaging thing to experience. And I think particularly when you're putting something out there as like an authority figure, that's really challenging.
And I know nothing about feeling that either.
Well, when somebody like even mentioned that was a thing, I went, oh my gosh, I get that all the time, because I want to shut down my channel and my website, everything, social media, and just have a flyer at like my, local supermarket or shopping center or whatever every month without fail.
Well, as I was reading your book, it's really funny because so when I was in school, we talked about this medical school syndrome, where the med student is just sitting in the lecture hall, and every single disease, every single illness that's presented and that's being taught about, they're like, oh my gosh, I think I have that. It's like that in psychology too, as you're going through, and it's like, oh my goodness, maybe I do have bipolar. Oh my goodness, maybe I am dissociating. Maybe you start thinking these things. Well, as I'm going through this book, that's what I felt like a little bit. I was like, yep, tick, yep, tick.
Yeah.
Checking off all the things. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm a mess.
Yeah.
I'm a mess.
But that's and everyone says that, which is why it's so nice to get feedback about the book, because everyone's just going, I feel like I know that I'm broken, but I also know that like everybody else is broken, because there were so many chapters. That's why it's probably overwhelming as well. so many chapters and people are like, yeah, I tick all the boxes apart from maybe 2, like we all have all of those stories, and we can always pick a moment where we go, oh yeah, that happened to me there, or I definitely felt that kind of wave of emotion at that point in time in my life. And we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, but we're all human, and we're all like, art is just a really challenging area to be in for this kind of thing.
Yeah. So that goes back to the resiliency, I think, that even though, despite the fact that we're feeling all those things, despite the fact that we're being overly hard on ourselves and we're terrified of criticism, and we hate that feeling of being vulnerable and taking those risks, that we get up and do it anyway. We take the criticism, and yeah, it hurts for a while and what have you, and maybe we make corrections based on it. Maybe we tweak a little something that we're doing because we realize, when we really think about it, that critique was honest, and maybe it's going to help us grow, and it's going to help us be better at what we do. But sometimes we just leave it. We just say, that's just trash, I don't need to listen to that. But at some point, I mean, if it's really in here, I feel like we still get up. If we still get up and we still keep walking and we still keep doing what we're doing despite the doubts. And that's where I think the courage comes in, because courage is not about not being afraid of something and doing it. It's about doing something despite the fact that we're terrified.
Yeah, definitely. That's the whole idea of bravery. And I think what you're saying is, it comes back to, how much do you love this? Like, how much does it mean to you? It comes back to your why. Why are you doing this? And with music, and there's a whole chapter in there about not taking it too seriously as well, and like still remembering that the reason that we all started singing and the reason that we are all musicians and artists is because we love it. Like it fills us up in a way that nothing else can. And so you often find that people who give up come back to it, whether or not it's months later or it's years later. There's something missing in their life if they're not doing it. And that's that kind of, oh gosh, I have to get up because this is so important to me.